morning, everyone, and welcome to the Regional Development Assistant Panel meeting of the 18th of April. My name's Tony Arias and I'm the presiding member. I'll introduce the other panel members. Lindsay Baxter, who's the deputy presiding member, and Nima Prenji, who's the specialist member. For Part B, Shire of Merredin, we have Councillor Simmons and Councillor Manning. For Part C, which is the City of Busselton, we have Councillor Cox and Councillor Ryan. For Part D, which is Shire of Harvey, we have Councillor Carboni and Councillor Campbell. From the RDAP Secretariat, we have Ashley Kelly, Minute Secretary, and Zoe Hendry, Governance. So I'd like to formally declare the meeting open at 9:36 and acknowledge the traditional owners and pay respects to elders past and present of which the land is being, the meeting is being held. The meeting will be run in accordance with RDAP Standing Orders 2024, and panel members may refer to technical devices through the meeting to assist them in considering the information. This meeting is being recorded and live streamed on the RDAP website in accordance with Regulation 42A. Item 2, apologies, we have Neil. Item 3, members on leave of absence, we have Neil. Item 4 is noting of minutes, just for information that previous minutes are on the RDAP website. We now move to Part B, which is the Shire of Merredin. Item 1 of Part B is declarations of due consideration. Members, I require you to declare that you've duly considered the information that's been provided within Part B of the agenda and Part B of the additional information. If you could declare that by raising your hand. Or duly considered, thank you. Item 2 is disclosures of interest. We've got no disclosures to date. Members, are there any late disclosures? Just for information, standing orders requires declarations where matters have gone to council and have been considered by councillors. I'm not sure whether that's the case with this item. Councillors, are you able to confirm whether the item has actually gone to council?
Yes, the item has gone to council.
Okay, in which case, councillors, you will, if you participated in that item, Councillor Simmons, Councillor Manning, you will need to make a declaration that you're able to consider the matter impartially and you're not bound by that council decision. Are you able to make that declaration?
Yes. Yes.
Yes, okay. We will get the secretary just to send you the form so you make that declaration. And in accordance with standing orders, I'm here to approve your participation in the meeting and voting on the item. Thank you. So move to item 3, which is the Form 1 application, Lot 5, Robertson Road, Merredin, battery energy storage system. And we go to presenters. Just a reminder that you have 3 minutes to present the item. Michael, you're...
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Presiding members and panels. I hope you can see and hear me now. I'm unmuted. So yes, my name's Michael Talforth. With me today is Mrs. Rebecca Hampson from Land Insights and Mr. Guy Beasley from Nomad Energy. I think Guy may be having a couple of technical issues trying to get onto the meeting. First of all, I'd just like to thank the Shire Merredin Administration and Council for their support of this project. It is a project that will reinforce the Shire's position as a renewable energy hub within the wheat belt. The specifics of the project are largely outlined in the development application and the responsible authority report. And our client is generally satisfied with the intent of the proposed conditions. So the purpose of this deputation is really to address the matter that I raised in the letter, which I believe has been circulated to the panel, namely regarding an extension of time to substantially commence the project. By doing so, I guess we're hoping to preemptively avoid the need to coming back and asking for a variation at a later date. As you'd probably appreciate, the battery energy storage system represents a substantial project. It's got several intricate components. Additionally, it also requires other approvals and commercial considerations before development can commence, specifically relating to connections to the adjoining Western Power switchyard, and along with some uncertainty around the processes of the recently rolled out essential system services market mechanisms in WA. And further, I guess, again, with many other projects, supply chain issues are still impacting the delivery of key equipment and infrastructure required for construction. So as such, our client would be seeking or appreciating 48 months as a substantial commencement date to enable these other matters to be considered and progressed. So look, I don't have too much more to say around the project apart from that, but obviously myself, Guy and Rebecca would be happy to respond to any other queries you might have. So thank you for your time.
Thank you for the presentation. Members, questions of Mr. Tayforth? Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
We will now move to the Shire Merredin offices. Sorry, who have we got in attendance from Shire offices?
This is the acting chief executive officer, John Merrick, and myself, the executive manager of development services, Peter Zenni, Z-E-N-N-I, and I look after the planning portfolio for the Shire of Merredin.
Okay, so Peter, you're the right person to respond to questions.
Yes, in principle, yes, in relation to this development. We also should have our planning consultant in attendance physically. My understanding, Paul Bashel from Plan West was also in attendance if there are questions of a more complex nature. But given the application before us, the level of support and the information that's been provided, I think it should be fairly easy to answer any questions at this point.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Bashel is here in attendance. So would you like to make any overall comments about the application?
Look, from our perspective, council is supportive. We see this as an excellent opportunity to consolidate Merredin as a focus point and a centre of excellence for renewable energy. We have a Colga wind farm in Merredin, as well as 2 solar farms. This proposal is adjacent to an existing solar farm in close proximity to Western Power infrastructure. Due to its location, it should have minimal impacts on the amenity of the surrounding locality, providing some basic conditions are met with respect to drainage and construction management plans. We would be supportive. We would also, given the scope and nature of the project, have no objection to the 48-month proposal with respect to substantial commencements. So in essence, I think we're pretty much on board in terms of supporting the application as adopted by council resolution forming part of the responsible authority report. Okay, so just in terms of that last point you made, so you'd be happy with the proposition that it's changed from 24 months to 48 months. Is that correct? That's correct. Yeah, okay. All right, members, are there questions?
I got a particular question. It's Nima Premji to the Shire. Just reading through your report, have you had any response regarding the bushfire management plan? I think there's a very small part of it was on the bushfire prone mapping. Could you provide some clarification on that?
So Obviously, the proposal is not in a bushfire prone area, therefore it doesn't trigger the relevant provisions. However, as part of the process, it was referred to a number of government agencies. Talking about the application which incorporated the bushfire management plan, including DFAS. DFAS asked for additional time in relation to assess the application, which we granted. They then came back and said they had no comment to offer because the development was outside of bushfire prone area.
Thank you.
Members, any other questions? Right, thank you, Mr. Zenny. In which case, we will now move to the actual item, and is someone prepared to move the recommendation in the RAR? Ms. Baxter, and seconded by Renji. Ms. Baxter, did you want to talk to the motion?
I will make a short statement, thank you. Look, it's always a little bit hard to know what to say about renewable energy and storage facilities such as batteries. They're not beautiful, but I suppose they perform a function. I'm content with the assessment in the responsible authority, and I support the proposal on the basis that it's located on a small section of a much larger lot, and it's in a precinct devoted to the generation of energy and power. In addition, at a development cost of 220 million, it will contribute to the Western Australian economy by virtue of construction and management. So accordingly, I will vote in accordance with the recommendation. I do, however, foreshadow a change to one of the conditions and the advice notes. Would you like me to present that forward?
Perhaps we deal with it as a separate motion.
All right.
Ms. Premji, did you want to make comment? No. Is anyone opposed to the motion? Is anyone else wanting to speak to the motion? No? I'll be supporting it as well. I think Ms. Baxter outlined pretty concisely the reasons for support. So you foreshadow changes to conditions?
I do. Given that there seems to be general agreement about changing the timeframe in which this development could commence, amending an advice note to that extent would appear to be a little bit superfluous. I think that advice note needs to actually be condition 1, and in which case I would support the wording as stated, but instead of the words a period of 24 months from the date of approval, I'd put forward that actually says 4 years, so that advice note 1 actually in fact becomes condition 1, and that the other conditions are renumbered accordingly, and the same with the advice notes.
Is there a seconder for that motion? Ms. Premji? Ms. Baxter, did you want to make any comment on that?
Really just that, not that this matter is going to end up in the tribunal in any way, but certainly advice notes often drop off if it ended up in the tribunal because they're not really a binding part of the decision, they're purely for information. I think it's generally agreed that there is often a time frame required to complete a development, and I think it's appropriate that advice note 1 becomes condition 1 with that change.
Okay, Ms. Premji, did you want to make any comment?
I agree with the Deputy Presiding Member. The project is within and consistent with the planning framework. It's in alignment with the local and state government's renewable strategy, and it complements the existing surrounding renewable energy infrastructure. So yes, I'm fully supportive of the project, of the DA.
Just to be clear, we're talking about the motion to change conditions.
Oh, sorry, motion to change.
Yes, that's fine. Is anyone opposed to changing advice note 1 and making it a condition? If not, I'm going to put that. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you. Ms. Baxter, did you have anything else?
I don't, thank you. That's as much as I need to say about it. Thank you.
Okay. Members, were there any other potential changes to conditions? If not, Ms. Baxter, you moved the original motion. Do you want to make any closing remarks?
Thank you. No, there's nothing further to say.
So we've got a motion in the RAR to approve, subject to one change, which has been voted on. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you. Just closing off that part of the agenda. Item 4, Form 2 applications. There are nil. Item 5, Section 31, SAT reconsiderations. There are nil. Representatives from the Shire of Merredin, you're welcome to stay on in the meeting. If you choose to leave us, no one will be offended. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So we now move to Part C, which is City of Busselton application. Item 1, declarations of due consideration. Once again, I need members to confirm they have duly considered the documentation provided in Part C and Part C of the additional information. If you declare that by raising your hand. Yep, all declared, thank you. Item 2, disclosures of interest. We don't have any disclosures to date. Are there any late disclosures? Councillors, thank you. Councillors of the City of Busselton have made a comment about standing orders where items have gone to council meetings. Is that the case with this particular item?
No.
All right, thank you. So no disclosures are necessary. Thank you. Item 3, Form 1 applications. So item 3.1, lot 101 Wildwood Road, Yellingup. It's a rural holiday resort. We go to presentations and we do have a number of presenters. I did say in relation to the Part B item, presenters have 3 minutes, and given we've got multiple presentations, I will let you know when 3 minutes is up. The first presenter is Andrew Jones.
Andrew,
Do we have Andrew Jones participating?
My name's Andrew Jones. I live next door to this development and I've been there for 46 years. I moved there in 1977, built the house 79. I've been there ever since. Looking at this proposal, I went right through it. I was very concerned about the lack of health and awareness with vineyard, especially sprays, herbicides, fungicides, insecticides. The whole vineyard is structured with arsenic impregnated posts to withhold the trellises. I've lived next door to that vineyard. The vineyard has changed over the years. The last owner there extended the vineyard right to my fence, which you can see on 2 photos. Right next door to me, the previous owner had a buffer zone around us with bush. We are severely impacted by mainly sulphur, which their sulphur regime is from October to January. Every 7 to 10 days, the vineyard gets gassed. It's a suspended gas that suspends in the vineyard. It's a very acrid, pungent smell. Sulphur reacts with moisture, including your own bodily moisture, your lungs, your nose, your throat, your eyes. We get blood noses, we get itchy eyes, sore throats, and chest infections. I get a chest infection every year because of the amount of sulphur in the air. There doesn't seem to be any health reports for any health department regarding this. When you enter the vineyard, the first thing you're confronted with is a hazmat site. They've got a designated shed for all these chemicals, and this proposal is going to be right in the middle of the vineyard. So that was one of my major concerns, is on the health risk to guests and staff. But so this is my major concern. And the other thing I'm worried about is the fire management plan is more of a printout version from a database. There's another photo there you'll see of an emergency warning fire that's just up the valley, up at Wild Hop, just 2 k's away. I'm a local firey. I attended at least 20 fires in this vicinity in the last 2 years. The last one was on the 6th of the 4th, across the road from the entrance to this property, 200 metres away, where city people decided to have a bonfire. We have been very lucky that we've had fires in this area without bad winds. That fire, on that notice, on that photo, there was evacuation plan for the nearby primary school. Luckily, the wind was blowing the other way. Otherwise, the school and all those residents on Wild Road would have to have been evacuated. But with this added proposal, there'll be 150 guests and staff. I think it's got to be very problematic trying to get an evacuation out on Coes Road unless there's an alternate plan for this. So my concerns is basic around health and wellbeing for people who live in the area, and especially the guests. If they're going to have to put up what we've put up for the last 20 or 25 years, well, you know, good luck, because it is a serious problem. If you look at sulphur and read up about it, it is poisonous. It is poisonous and it's toxic. Like I said, the vineyard, we've had 3 vineyard fires this year, and when a fire goes through a vineyard, it impacts the arsenic impregnant posts. Everybody has to wear masks. So I'm sure, you know, you just can't be complacent with fire or health. So I'm not against the proposal, it's just a scale, and I think they have left out some important considerations. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Members, questions of Mr. Jones? Do we have the Shires, the city still there? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Jones. The next presenter is John White.
Good morning, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, John.
Given the time constraints, panelists, I'm going to read my presentation. Forgive me if I'm a little fast.
John, sorry, John, to interrupt. Your presentation has been circulated to members, and so they have reviewed it. If you want to, it's up to you, but perhaps if you want to focus on the key parts that you think is most important, rather than reading the whole thing, because you might run out of time.
Yes, panelists, and I've done that already. So this is an abridged version. It's in no way meant to repeat my previous lodgements and responses to this application. So my name's John White. Nicholas Smith and myself are residents of Millbrook Valley. We've also operated a master planning consultancy for the last 25 years. And we compiled the detailed response to the submission in the appendix that is part of the RDAP agenda notes. The visual impact of the development is significant, and in our view, the response from the City of Busselton is unsatisfactory in this regard. Whilst we acknowledge there is no requirement to retain the site in its natural state, we would not expect this. The current planning scheme is detailed in its requirement to retain the rural ambience of the area, as cited in section 4.3 of the Local Planning Policy 2.4. Let me be specific in my argument to the panel. These are the density numbers. The vineyard, the current land total area is 42 hectares. The vineyard is 18 hectares and the water bodies are 2.1 hectares. Based on the land available for development of approximately 21 hectares, this fails the minimum site area requirement. Squeezing a large accommodation development onto a 21 hectare site has led to undesirable compression of buildings and infrastructure in the layout, creating the appearance of a highly commercial, not rural development. In fact, the actual siting of the development buildings and infrastructure will occupy a much lower area of land than 21 hectares. In addition, we acknowledge the applicant's report fails the visual assessment and character test in relation to the current planning scheme. The applicant's own visual assessment report identifies the majority of the view shed is located to the east of the property, yet seemingly ignores this by concentrating on the visual aspect from Wildwood Road and Caves Road. Building heights are in no way in keeping with the general character of the area. Although single-storey, the excessive roof pitches result in a height of up to 9 metres. And we suggest that these should be capped at 4 to 5 metres, which still allows for generous ceiling heights. Site planning has simply maximised the allowable density onto an existing cleared field. The applicant suggested that the landscaping will alleviate any visual disruption to neighbouring properties. While this may be true of adjoining properties, not true for the majority of properties that will look at the resort. Proposed rainwater tanks, APZ requirements and the sloping nature of the land means that the landscaping will have little or no effect on the view shed. Development is significant in the local regions. A large-scale development, in summary, has caused local angst for local developments. The panel needs to critically consider the site planning of the resort in relation to the current City of Busselton planning scheme, and if approved, ask the applicant to meet further conditions in relation to the number of buildings, resulting in a lower density, building height reduction to 4 to 5 metres, roofs to be non-metallic, and landscaping requirements to be specific in nature in relation to screening the buildings from valley residents to the east. I apologise, I've gone over time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Well, you haven't quite gone over time, but members.
I think you got the gist of it.
No, thank you. Members, questions of Mr. White? John, you made a reference to sort of density, and I use the word density loosely, but the RAR does indicate that the number of chalets complies with the council policy. Do you want to clarify your comment?
Yes, so that is, of course, the cornerstone of any development, that it complies with density, and density can only be taken on the total land area. That's the cornerstone of the planning scheme. However, our argument is that that should be overlaid with the intent of the planning scheme and overlaid with other criteria such as bushfire management and visual assessment. And so when you take away the current agricultural use of the site and water bodies, that reduces the developable land to 21 hectares. And it's compressed even more because all of the buildings are on a current clear field. So whilst the density complies with the planning scheme, don't believe it's one interpretation of it, and given the sloping nature of the site and the current land use, I feel that the number of chalets proposed in the application is not in keeping with the character of the land and squeezes all that, you know, the intent of the planning scheme is to allow for separated buildings on a larger area of land. I feel it's wrong to apply that criteria and then compress the buildings onto a smaller land area.
It's created a higher density development in effect.
Okay, thank you. The other question, the RAR, and I'll ask the city's officers to clarify it later on, does make reference to the site area, which is not the 21 hectares you refer to. It refers to the site area being 45, I think, what's 45 hectares?
42.
42.
Yeah, 42 hectares.
Mm.
You made reference to 21 hectares.
I'm making that as my own calculation based on the developable land area, given that 18 hectares of the site is currently under agricultural use and has a viticulture zoning.
And that is proposed to be retained. So that is not going to be available for any part of the development.
But in calculating the let's say density, the policy would refer to the total site, wouldn't it?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. All right. The other question, and it will be a question I propose to put to the city's officers, is about the particular objectives of the zone, the viticulture and tourism zone. It would seem that one of the objectives is about providing alternative uses. So it foreshadows the opportunity to have this sort of development in amongst the rural activities.
does.
Sorry, is that a question to the city?
Well,
Or
yeah,
to-
no, a question to you, because you did say it doesn't meet the council's objectives.
So I'm referring to the special character zoning of the area. So I'm not referring to the conflict between viticultural use and rural development such as this. I'm referring to the special character zoning of the site in place under the planning scheme, which I don't believe that this proposal meets the intent of that special character zoning. So my argument is not that it's in conflict with the vineyard as such. I do believe that the density calculation is a little bit misleading. However, it complies, strictly speaking. But I think overlaid with that should be the intent of the planning scheme, which is very specific in its classification of a rural character zone and that associated low density. And I do not believe that this development meets that criteria.
Right. Thank you. Members, any further questions of Mr. White? If not, thank you for your presentation.
You're welcome.
We now move to Mark Z. Yeah, just bring it up. Just want to see.
By the way, thanks very much for giving us the opportunity to talk to the panel. I'd just like to point out on this PowerPoint presentation the 3 points of interest for us. Obviously, that's location C for the crossover on the Caves Road.
The only problem with that is no one else can see it other than us in the room, but I'm happy for you to point it out to us.
There's 3 points on this property along the 2 roads that bound it from the east and the west. On the eastern side, you've got location A and location B. Location A is to the north, location B is to the south. Then you've got an access onto Caves Road, which is location C, which is at the southwestern corner of the property. So in starting, we expect that the proposed development will be in general in line with the intent of the special rural tourist precinct which it resides, and we expect, however, the final design will respect the quiet rural and the rural nature of the location. We have a big issue with the proposed access point to the development at location A, that is one at the north, and request that it be amended as a priority. Under the current design, not only will it be not only will we be one of the closest neighbours to experience the light and noise pollution from the development, we'll also have the experience of seeing all vehicles arriving and departing directly across from our home at all hours. We don't want that to be part of our future. So location A is opposite our place at 1664 Wildwood Road. You can see it on that image. It's directly opposite. We've never seen a crossover used there in 37 years since we've been there. And proposing the main axis here simply astounds us because of all of the possible driver locations that could be considered. This one impacts directly on the only house along the entire road frontage of Lot 101. It simply emphasises a lack of consideration that the planners have given to the impact on neighbours. The crossover location will result in detrimental safe access to our house and a danger for other road users, amongst other issues. Safety of the crossover is real. Traffic impact statement prepared by Ascent Engineering states the proposed access at location A does not comply with safe site distance requirements for intersections, but instead they use an absolute minimum requirement for property accesses to justify the location. Our planning advisors suggest the development will generate at least 136 vehicle movements per day, which means that it should be classified as an intersection rather than just a crossover. It's simply unsafe. The City of Busselton obviously concurs with us because they will not do a rubbish pickup in front of our property, despite numerous requests on our behalf, because they say that our driveway is too close to a bend in the road and would therefore create an unacceptable traffic hazard if approved. Add another 136 vehicle movements It just gets ridiculous. In conclusion, there's 3 possible crossover locations indicated on the plan. Location A, we just talked about, not used currently. Location C, which would be far more appropriate for a development of this scale, given that Caves Road is designed for greater traffic volume. It also would be infinitely more desirable for the Montessori school located 500 metres to the west of us on Wildwood Road. We understand, however, that Main Roads has opposed the use of existing location C. Not too sure why. So if location C is unavailable, then location B is the only logical alternative. It is a far better choice than location A. It is already the main access to lot 101. It is in a relatively straight section of road and it has clear line of sight in both directions and it doesn't impact on any existing neighbouring dwellings. So our request is please change from location A.
So the conclusion of the presentation.
That's it, yeah, thanks very much.
If you could stay there for a moment and see whether we have questions. Members, questions of Mr. Z? Would you mind, and unfortunately it won't benefit the City of Busselton Council, but it might benefit the panel. So you referred to the 3 access points. Could you just identify those on that? Okay.
That's our place. That's location A, straight down.
Yeah, okay.
That is.
So can you locate your house on that?
Just there.
Yeah, okay.
Right on the location C is in the southwest corner, which has got existing dwelling that's there, and they may use.
Can you point out that panel members in Busselton can't see what you're seeing?
Okay.
Yep.
We have a blank screen.
Yeah, and that's
yeah, location B.
okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Any other questions, Mr. Z?
Can I just ask from the City of Busselton, thank you, Mr. Z, for your presentation. Approximately how far off Wildwood Road is your house located? How many metres off Wildwood Road?
Probably 15.
So it's very close. You have a very short driveway.
Driveway enters in front of the house and goes around the back to the implement shed.
Okay, 15 metres. Thank you.
Look, I'm not too sure if it is. Maybe 15 to 20 metres.
Okay, that answers my question.
That's from the boundary fence. It's not from the road, obviously.
Thank you.
All right. If no further questions, thank you for the presentation. The next presenter, Peter Visser. Peter, can you? Hello, Peter. Okay. You're on mute, Peter.
Okay. Are we off now?
Yep, can hear you and see you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. I would like to just highlight a couple of the policies that are in the document. The council policy talking about the developments to provide a rural ambience and setting for a rural tourist accommodation to avoid overdevelopment appearance of commercial development and sorry. Okay, and one other says is that one of the state planning policies is a low impact tourist development will be considered in locations that will not adversely affect the character of the surrounding areas and comprise only buildings or structures which are small in scale and unobtrusive. Well, I believe this development conflicts with each one of those directives and planning objectives. And while we have hundreds of pages of information about bushfires and soil and stuff like that, I feel that we're overlooking the reality of the social impact of this this proposed development, because what's happened over the many years is that the area has changed into a rural residential area, and now we have a fairly sizable development being proposed that is also set on a hill, which is another one of the planning objectives that they wanted to avoid. This is set up on a hill overlooking all these rural residential areas, and during the quiet hours of the evening and stuff, sound travels. And I think one of the highlights of the PORD design is the facilities room, which we have no information on as far as uses. They talk about only being on-site customers. Well, I can see that being weddings organised there, but here it is set up on a hill. It has an open area that looks out over the valley, and I can guarantee now that weddings, etc., will happen there, and I'll be sitting in my house, which is 900 metres away, listening to all the disruption that goes right across the valley. It seems like the zoning has not kept up with the changes. The council rezones one area but leaves the other area. And so we've been through all this before, and so we're looking at a complete disruption of the ambience of this whole Yellingup Valley there, or the Millbrook Valley, if you like. And I think it's the impact of the development is going to be, I mean, we talk about a visual impact, and the conclusion of the ecoscape says that you won't really see too much from Wildwood Road, because only cars travelling at 80 kilometres per hour will see that, and they'll zip by. Well, I'm sorry, but the whole side of the hill there, it even says that, you know, the new structures will be in keeping with what is already there on a similar scale. This is what they say, proposed towards the top of the ridge, a similar scale to the existing buildings. This is on a massive scale, and it's up on the ridge for all to see, which is something the planning policy also mentions, that they don't want developments on the ridge, overlooking numerous rural residential. We live there and go there to enjoy the ambience of the rural setting. This is going to absolutely destroy that, because you, as I say, the facilities building is like a sound shell set up on the hill, and sound, there's at the very least that should be turned around and faced west, so that the sound is not projected out across the valley.
Mr. Visor, I do need you to sort of conclude your presentation, so perhaps if you could sort of summarise and conclude.
Okay, my point is that the great aspect of that whole area is a rural setting where we go and we live and enjoy the peace and the quiet of the country. Twice the distance away, the swings and roundabouts can be heard at night time. This is much closer, set up on the hill, and as far as I can see, there are no provisions to shut it down at any times. People don't go there simply to sit on the balcony. People go there to party, and that is something that we'll have to endure if this is not mitigated and changed in some dimensions. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Visor. Members, questions, Mr. Visor? Mr. Visor, you would be aware that in the RAR, the council addressed this issue of weddings or it being used as a reception centre, and they've indicated that's not part of the proposed approval. You'd be aware of that?
I haven't seen that, no.
No, okay. That's the advice. The applicant's not applying for a reception centre, which is what is required in order to conduct those activities. The council's also proposed a condition for the management of the activity, which obviously would address things like noise and operation generally. Are you aware of that?
I haven't seen that, but can I can I just say that the orientation of that facilities building, people will gather there. People, we see it even in houses that are rented out around the area. People will go there, gather there, and have their drinks and get a bit rowdy. The orientation of that building should at least be turned around and faced west so that it's not projected down the valley.
Okay, I think you've made that point, Mr. Advisor. Thank you. Members, any further questions? If not, Mr. Advisor, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
We now move to Mark Halsall.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak to the meeting today regarding the proposed rural tourist resort at Lot 101, Wildwood Road, Yallingup. My name's Mark Halsall. I'm a planning consultant, been a town planner working in the Cape to Cape region for 30 years. And I'm here with Peter Meddage, the owner, and Tom Brooking, the architect, and we do have Bushfire Consultant online. I know members would have read my presentation already, so I won't go through all of that in detail. We have requested some minor changes to conditions, and that's principally to try and remove a little bit of ambiguity in the way some of those are worded, make them a little bit more reasonable to operate within, refer to the technical reports, and also allow for fair and reasonable operation of the use. I think I'll try and improvise a little bit and deal with some of the comments that have come through, along with reiterating the justification for the proposal. It's important to recognise that there's been very limited offerings of this type of accommodation in the Cape to Cape region. It's surprising to think that when you look around that area, it's been hard to find something in the last 20 years that has been put forward that really gives guests an opportunity to experience that exact amenity that the neighbours are concerned about because they're experiencing it too. What we're trying to do with this proposal is let guests come and experience that amenity as well without being of detriment to it. And that's the way the proposal's been tailored, is the way it's to be managed. And that's why it's quite a relaxed accommodation offering with on-site amenities for guests so that they can experience that amenity from the site. And so that is a really important point, that our client is committed to making sure that the development operates within that amenity, because that's the very amenity they're trying to showcase themselves. It's important also to note that it's very high quality. It's to showcase the viticultural enterprise of the area. Most of the tourism experiences down south have been beach oriented, and this is obviously to do that. And part of the key point for this proposal is we're in the viticulture and tourism zone. And this is what the viticulture and tourism zone's for. It's for viticulture and it's for tourism, and the provisions are set up that way to provide very strong guidance. And we've probably got the strongest and most detailed rural tourism policy in the state here, giving us guidance on density, the issues we should address, setbacks, how we should look at doing development, and we've tailored it to that. And that's the adopted framework of the council to demonstrate if you achieve those things, you're meeting those objectives for that zone. That's what the zone's intention is. We've deliberately situated development outside of vegetated areas. Obviously, there's some comment there about density. Obviously, we would argue that every development site has got waterways, bushland areas that are used for agriculture. It doesn't necessarily mean that the density needs to be reduced to the usable space. But at the same time, policy tells us to try and use spaces that don't interfere with the agriculture. It needs to work in concert with it. It's good to have the activity consolidated to a certain extent, but broken up in form, so that it's not completely dispersed through a rural property. Turning to the issue of access, We had a very close look at access right at the beginning. It was a key thing. We've had an expert look at all the 3 entry points that have been discussed. Caves Road, we all know that main roads didn't support that entry point even being mentioned, just mentioned as an emergency option for bushfire, even though it wasn't needed. The other entry point A doesn't comply based on site distances looking a certain distance to the east. I do understand the neighbours' concerns about the entry point. It is set slightly away from, not directed particularly at their dwelling. There is a chicane there that gives plenty of landscaping treatment. And also the traffic movements are generally daytime movements. And the house is close to Wildwood Road. It's 15, 20 metres away, as we heard. There's lots of traffic movement on Wildwood Road during the day, and that's when we're experiencing our traffic movements with a maximum, I believe, 6 vehicle movements in and out at peak hour during the day.
Mr. Halsall, I want to remind you that your time is up now, so you do need to conclude. I'm sure there will be questions around some of those issues that you propose to tackle.
Yes. So I think really important concluding points would be that visually it's important to address the fact that the key points are Caves Road, Wildwood Road in the policy, and from a broader perspective, if you meet the breaking up of development, sitting it under the landscape, backdropping, landscaping, etc., using the right colours and materials, that meets the policy intent as far as other visual. It's not intended that development has to be evident from every location in the locality. Another key final point is that the local government officers have supported this proposal. They're used to dealing with proposals like this under this policy framework, and they've supported the format of the development and the way it addresses all of those concerns that have been raised today. And so those conditions that are recommended will, with subtle changes, we think provide for address of all the matters that have been raised as concerns.
Thank you. I'm sorry to cut you short, but we do need to be consistent in terms of giving people time. So, members, questions of Mr. Halsall?
I've got a question. You mentioned about the driveway, but somewhere in the report I read, this is quite a bit of information, there was a tree that was going to be taken out to get the line of sight. And when you take that tree out, do you still get that line of sight?
That's correct. Yes.
So that tree that's been written in here, and I believe that the arborist has had a look at that tree as well.
That's right.
There's not of any significance.
Correct, and as shown on the application plan, it's been discussed over and over with the planners at the city that that's the intention. It's actually on the property. It's on the peak of property that is to be seeded to become public road. So that's one tree will improve sight distances, and that's because it's on the outside of a bend. It's obviously a better arrangement than being on the inside of the bend on the other side of the road.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark, again, in relation to the access point, so the preferred access is in fact point A, location A. How offset is it to the person's property on the other side of the road? So you said it's not quite directly in front, so it means it must be offset a bit at least.
Yeah, I think it's. I'll have a look at the plan here. I'm not sure if the architect can help me, but I believe it's probably 20 or 30 metres. It's more directed towards the outbuildings of the main dwelling is slightly to the east.
Okay, and there is some mention in the report about that also being mitigated a bit by some other landscaping. So, I mean, the concern that was expressed by that presenter was that they're going to be headlights shining directly into their house. They have indicated that they're about 15 minutes back off the boundary, but it is a concern, and it was addressed in the report. But I'm more interested in the fact that it's the driveway is not directly opposite their house. Then it's at outbuildings.
Yeah, I don't believe it's pointing directly at the dwelling. Yeah. The chicane is there for a few reasons, but also creates that opportunity for landscaping to break that car lights down into that location.
Okay, all right. I'm going to ask the council to confirm that in due course as well. A couple of other things. One of the presenters indicated that the height of the buildings are too high at about 9 metres. Is there any scope to reduce that at all?
Well, obviously that's compliant and it's an architectural feature. I'm not sure how my client and architect will respond to that. So
happy for you to come to the microphone so we can all hear what's being said?
I believe it's only the main facilities building that's at that.
Well, can you just clarify that, given it's been raised as a significant issue?
Tom Brooking, the architect. Yeah, the main facilities building is 9 metres. That's the biggest problem.
Okay, and the chalet buildings and the other components are how high?
6 to 7 on the ridge heights.
Okay, and the 9 metres in fact does comply. Again, I'll confirm that with the council, but alrighty. One other question, and that was in relation to the health impacts that were raised by one of the presenters who indicated, and I know we're talking about viticulture and tourism sort of being compatible, but was that looked at in relation to any of the health impacts with spraying and other toxins?
No, it wasn't, because I think it's inherent with any operator of any development site that they need to manage the health impacts themselves, for themselves, for their guests. And that'll be inherent on every property in Southwest where that kind of activity is occurring. And I think the city accepted that is the responsibility of the owner. Obviously, you don't want to be providing an unhealthy and unreasonable environment for your guests. They're not going to be coming back. So that's something that obviously will need to be managed with practices and careful attention to how the vineyards run. And that's the intent, and is accepted across the state as the way that issue is dealt with.
Okay. So an owner or operator manages it within their own site. What about overspray from other properties, and indeed things that linger in the air?
Well, we're not proposing viticulture here. I mean, the viticulture exists, and so obviously, if there are issues that exist in that respect, then perhaps the neighbour should talk to the owner of the property. But at the end of the day, that's not part of this proposal. That issue where it spreads to, if there's an issue, if people are raising that issue, that's not part of this application. We're not generating that.
Right. Thank you.
Just on the back of that particular concern that's been expressed, in your conditions, the Department of Health has made some comments about that, and also a condition has been imposed whereby the operator has to produce a tourism facilities management plan that will address those issues. Are you comfortable in that plan will address these issues, and these issues will be information will be given to your guests, so to speak? Yes. Thank you.
Councillor Cox, Councillor Ryan, do you have any questions of the applicant?
Just in relation, following on again from that viticulture question, how close are the chalets and hotel rooms to the actual vines? Like, what would be the closest point between the actual vineyard and the how many metres?
Most of the accommodations are fairly distant in the south part, and the north part there could be as 20-30 metres away at the narrowest point.
And how many of those blocks would be 20 or 30 metres away in the northern section?
Blocks 3, 4 and 5, and then obviously you've got the 2 chalets to the north. The building to the north of that is the dwelling.
And the intention is to keep that as an operating vineyard, given that it is quite a significantly large vineyard. There are a number of vines. We have seen other rural tourist accommodation sites that do have some vines on the property. This is probably the most significant operating vineyard that we've seen that's applied for this kind of accommodation in conjunction with an operating vineyard.
Yes, it is the intent to maintain the vineyard and manage that interrelationship of the 2 uses. And then that's formed part of the proposal. We feel confident we can do that.
Thank you.
I had a question, and it may be relevant to the architect. A number of presenters have raised this issue of location of the chalets in terms of their visibility and their outlook being on the hill, I think, to quote one of the presenters. What has been the design philosophy in terms of placement of the chalets?
Well, the design philosophy is a few things. Obviously, we've got usable area in that location. That's the location where the existing house is. We're trying to provide a central location for accommodation, complying with setbacks, but also to take in that amenity that everyone else is experiencing there as well, without compromising the policy in respect of being skylining. It's adequately backdropped, it's set into the hill, low profile buildings, colours and materials, landscape around. So the design philosophy is to, consolidate but still break up the form, and be respectful to the policy framework.
Yeah, part of the question was around the placement on the hill and getting potentially vistas. You said set into the hill, which is a bit different to what the view of the presenter is, that it's actually on the hill. So from a design perspective, are they in the hill or are they designed to actually capture views, and is that the intent?
Certainly, yeah, to capture views for sure, without breaching the top of the hill, which is the guidance we're given.
Okay, all right. The only other question I had was around this issue of access. Now, the traffic impact analysis concludes that the access points are workable, but perhaps not ideal. One of the presenters suggested alternatives, and I think you started to talk that and I interrupted you from a time perspective. Maybe you want to clarify why you believe the other access points aren't suitable.
Yeah, so the site distances for the agricultural entry at the eastern end of the property, there's a crest coming from the east, and so that doesn't comply. And so we obviously did analysis of the entire road network through there, noting that Caves Road as well, and it was a very detailed analysis, but it came down to the point of specific meetings with city engineers, doing traffic counts and speed counts on the road, and it was noted that the point that's been identified, the speed of traffic in that area, and we're talking about reducing the speed. Both Main Roads, who were involved in speed reduction decisions, and the city engineers were even thinking, well, we're considering reducing the speed in this area, but once they had a look at the actual speed of traffic in that area based on traffic counter equipment, they were actually travelling at the right speed anyway, and that verified that whilst we meet the minimum standard, and they considered that would be adequate in that context.
Okay. So you're saying the proposed access meets minimum requirements,
yes,
even though it's probably not ideal. The other two access points you're saying aren't acceptable?
My understanding is that the one at the eastern end of the property is not acceptable, and Main Roads objected to the Caves Road one.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And perhaps it's a question for the city's officers to expand on that position. Members, any other questions of Mr. Halsall? No? Thank you for your presentation. So we move to the actual item. Members, is someone prepared to move the recommendation? Oh, sorry. Yes. I was just reminded that we haven't given the Shire, the City of Busselton officers opportunity to respond or answer questions. Who's best placed as city officers? Joanna, is that you that can respond?
I think I'll be responding.
Okay. It is Andrew, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay, Andrew, did you want to make any overall comments about the application?
Yeah, I will briefly. So in regards to the assessment of the application by officers, we have assessed it against the relevant planning framework, being the deemed provisions in the regulations, the local planning scheme, and we've also assessed it against city's local planning policies, which include the rural tourist accommodation policy and other relevant policies such as Caves Road visual management policy. In doing that, we've also referred the development to relevant referral agencies such as Main Roads, DBCA, DWER, so it's been Department of Water and Environment Regulation, and also the Department of Health. And also, obviously, it has been advertised for comment for the ability for surrounding landowners to comment. In consideration of all of those aspects, planning framework, referral agency comments, and surrounding landowner comments, city officers have formed the view that the application is able to be supported, but there are a series of conditions as recommended to address issues such as to do with the access, land use in relation to how facilities, buildings may or may not be able to be used, including requirements for noise management and overall tourist facility operations. We have also looked at it in regards to how the buildings sit within the landscape. And yeah, it has resulted in the officers determining that the application is relevant to be supported. In regards to the access, city officers, both being planning officers and some of our engineering staff, have undertaken site visit to look at the various access options. It was considered that the existing access onto Wildwood Road certainly cannot comply with site distance requirements. The proposed access would, with some removal of 1 to 2 trees, be able to comply with minimum requirements for that. And we also looked at the option of access onto Caves Road, which did appear to have the best site distances. However, obviously, as that is a main roads controlled road, we had to consider the comments from Main Roads that they would not approve of any access onto Caves Road. Yeah, I guess from there, we're happy to take any questions that members may have.
Thanks, Andrew, for sort of overall commentary. Members, questions of the city's officers? No rush. Ms. Baxter.
Thank you. We've just been handed what appears to be an alternative list of conditions. And it's very difficult for the panel to sort of be handed something and try and get their head round what are voluminous conditions. But in relation to this access issue, I noticed that in red, it does talk about the primary access to now come from Caves Road, but hasn't it just been stated that Main Roads will not allow a primary access to Caves Road?
So in the comments that Main Roads has provided as a referral response to the city, yes, they have said that they do not agree to any access onto their road. That's correct.
Then what would be the point of the panel, should it move to any sort of approval, imposing what appears to be condition 4.8, when in fact it would not be able to be complied with if Main Roads wouldn't permit a crossover or an access there?
Can I point out that the alternate conditions that you have been supplied with are not coming from city officers? They're actually coming from Councillor Ryan, I believe.
An amendment.
Okay.
And I will raise it. I can raise it now or in my address to you. The reasons why I've done that.
Yeah, Councillor, yes, and you can do that later. I think we're able to discuss the issue of access and what you might believe is appropriate. So, but at this stage not refer specifically to any potential motion to change conditions. So I'm happy for you to raise that as a question to the city's officers.
I'm moving an amendment that the conditions be changed because that road used to be a City of Busselton or a Shire of Busselton road.
Sorry, councillor, it's not the appropriate time to move a motion. So if you want to put a question to the city's officers about the access point, I'm happy for you to do that, but you can't raise a motion right now.
No, I'm not suggesting, but I'm just trying to give you my rationale of why I would like to move these amendments when the time is appropriate, because, well, I can ask a question of the staff if you like, so that you can understand my rationale.
Yeah, please do that. Direct it as a question.
So I guess my question is, did the Shire of Busselton ever have planning approvals for the access of the current site, where the access and egress is now onto Caves Road? Did the Shire possibly approve that entryway?
City officers have tried to find details on if that access onto Caves Road was ever approved. We have been unable to find details of whether or not that was ever approved, although that there is evidence to show that access onto Caves, the existing crossover access onto Caves Road has been in place for a number of decades.
So, Andrew, just to clarify, Main Road's objection, I think their reference to additional access points, they view the current access as an additional access.
Well, they're saying that they acknowledge that there is a crossover there now, but they are saying that has never been approved by Main Roads. It's not clear whether it had previously ever been approved by the city, but they're saying they don't support that being used, whether it's for primary access or even as a secondary emergency egress point to meet bushfire management requirements.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Baxter?
Andrew, my apologies. When we were handed this document, it appeared to me that it was said that it was from the council. So clearly it's from a council member, not yourself. Could I just clarify something in the RAR in relation to a couple of the conditions? Condition 6 refers to requirements of conditions 3 and 4. I tend to think that's a typographical error because condition 3 is sort of just a statement. Could you confirm that probably needs to be conditions 4 and 5?
So it should be foolproof. Yeah, that would be correct.
Okay, and the same applies to condition 7. It also refers to condition 3, and I think that probably ought to be conditions 4 and 5.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. I know how that occurs. You know, you're sort of fiddling around with conditions and things and advice notes. Okay, that's fine from me for the moment. Thank you.
Ms. Premji?
Yes, I have a few questions for the city officers. First of all, I'd like you to have a look at condition 4.8. Now, you've got similar conditions relating to construction and waste management plan in 4.2 and 4.3, and you went on ahead in the advisory note and you actually stated what is required. However, I look at 4.8, it just says details of stormwater and surface water drainage. Would officers like that to follow a particular policy within the city is my first question. And 2, should it be stated to the satisfaction of the Shire of Busselton as has been for the other conditions?
Yeah. So in relation to being to the satisfaction of the City of Busselton, that's actually incorporated into the header component of condition 4.
Okay, so you take that, you are happy with that. And in terms of the requirements of the stormwater and surface water drainage details or plans, is there any particular criteria that the Shire officers wants the developer, the applicant to provide?
That would be, needs to be consistent with the city's engineering technical specifications.
So would it be better if it was stated details of stormwater and surface water drainages to be to the specifications of the Shire, engineering specifications of the Shire of Busselton?
You could choose to do that.
Okay, it's just that it's a very open statement and it can be interpreted as anything. So that will come forward in the motion. I'll put that forward. My other question is again going to advisory note number 22. You've said that Main Roads does not approve access to Caves Road. Now, somewhere in the report, I also read that, or I think in one of the correspondence with Main Road, that they actually want that to be closed off.
That is correct, that Main Roads have said because that is not a crossover that they have approved, that they would wish for that to be closed off.
Okay, thank you. And my last one is, have you seen the amendments that has been proposed by the by Mark that has been given to us? Have you, the officers, had a chance to view those?
I'm not sure that we've seen them.
Okay.
We're not sure when they came through.
All right, thank you.
Councillors, did you have any other questions of the city's officers?
Yes, I will ask a couple of questions, if I may, to the city's officers. What was the justification from Main Roads with regard to not allowing access onto Caves Road? Did they provide any substantial reasoning behind that decision?
For a start, typically Main Roads don't support additional traffic being placed onto a Main Roads road where they view that there is a suitable alternative access. And in this instance, they have advised that their view is that the proposed access onto Wildwood Road is a suitable alternative access. And in turn, so that's for the primary access point. And in terms of secondary emergency access, they view that the existing access onto Wildwood Road is suitable to be used for a secondary access point. They also make comment that they believe that given the topography and geometry of the road, and also the volume of traffic that goes along Caves Road, that it wouldn't be suitably safe to put access onto Caves Road.
Okay, thank you. And a supplementary question, if I may. Are officers comfortable with the provision of potable water, that there will be a sufficient supply of potable water, given that I think I read in the comments somewhere that there was potentially no more allowance to take any more groundwater and it would have to be supplied in rainwater tanks, and given that we are in the middle of the dry 6 months, probably potentially on record in this area, and we have a pool and a spa and a number of holiday units, are officers comfortable that they will be able to have an adequate supply of potable water to this development?
The local planning scheme and also our tourist accommodation policy do have provisions in there to talk about how much water is to be supplied for both for dwellings and for tourist accommodation. What's being proposed by use of water tanks is consistent with those policies. in regards to whether or not in a drying climate that will be sufficient and whether or not the tanks will be sufficiently recharged, that's a difficult thing for city officers to determine. If necessary, it would probably be something that is a commercial risk for the proponent, and if they have to cart water, then maybe that's something they have to do. If they're looking at any access to water that's not rainwater, that's water that's gained from the site, then as a commercial proposal, they would likely need licenses from Department of Water.
Okay, thank you. And my final question is just around the visual impact of the main facilities building. It has been stated that it does comply at 9 metres. However, it was implied that it is sitting into the ridge when in fact I believe it is sitting on top of the ridge. Is that the case? And do you believe that if it is in fact sitting on top of the ridge at 9 metres, that there will not be any visual impact to any surrounding properties?
So from a city officer assessment, so the height limit for the zone is 12 metres, so at a maximum of 9 metres. That is less than the maximum height limit. From our reading of the contours of the site, the top of the ridge would actually be approximately 10 metres above where the floor of these buildings would be proposed to be situated. So in respect to the applicant saying it's more into the hill, then yes, that could be argued that is the case.
Thank you.
Members, any other questions of the city's officers? Andrew, just to confirm, from a city officer's perspective, you're saying the proposed access is satisfactory, subject to some modification as proposed by your proposed conditions?
Yes, correct. Our assessment of visiting the site and looking at where the proposed access is, that yes, that can comply, subject to the types of modifications contemplated by the recommended conditions.
All right, thank you. Members, no other questions? Andrew, thank you for your responses. So we now will move to the item, and we've got a recommendation in the RAR to approve subject to conditions. Is someone prepared to move the motion recommendation in the RAR? Ms. Baxter? Ms. Primji? Ms. Baxter, did you want to talk to the motion?
I do, thank you. Firstly, I would like to note and acknowledge the issues which were raised in the submissions, and there were a considerable number of submissions. People are often fearful of a development or use that they didn't anticipate in their neighbourhood, particularly in rural residential areas. I tend to agree with some of the concerns that it could become a function centre, but the proponents would need to run the gauntlet of a further planning application on that. However, I would not support any modification to condition 416 that allows the function centre to operate before 7 AM or after 10 PM. They are reasonable times. The southwest and coastal areas are an attractor, and it is expected that there will be a range of accommodation types for all visitors and tourists to the region. I also think that the development indicates confidence to the tourism and building sectors after some difficult years. I am of the view that this is actually a well-designed boutique type of development with a rural appearance. The Responsible Authority report has addressed the concerns raised in the submissions and impacts and site-specific issues which can be further mitigated in preparation of working drawings and governed by conditions. Bushfire risk is a major consideration but has been adequately addressed. as has the issue which has just been discussed about the primary access, which I did initially have some concerns about. I am content with the assessment against the policy criteria, notwithstanding that there was a very comprehensive submission which takes the contrary position. I am prepared to support the proposal and will vote accordingly. I do foreshadow just two minor conditions that I raised with the council officers just to correct a couple of typographical errors. In other respects, I'm prepared to support this application.
Thank you, Ms. Baxter. Ms. Premji?
Thank you, Presiding Member. First of all, to the Shire officers, the report was well prepared and the conditions do address the concerns that have been expressed by the submissions, but also by other agencies. You have taken into account the access ways and a debate has occurred about it. The other thing is also, I do understand main roads and their reluctance in putting forward an access over Caves Road, as I can understand where they come from, and thank you for the explanation provided by the Shire officers. I therefore support the recommendation as placed in front of me at the moment and shadow a change to a particular condition 4.8 going forward.
Thank you. Is anyone opposed to the motion? Okay. Councillor, who wants to go first? Councillor Ryan or Councillor Cox?
Yes, I'm opposed to this motion, but I'd also like to foreshadow that 4.8 be amended, 4.9 be amended, and a minor technicality in item 7.1. I believe you have those in front of you.
So, sorry, is it Councillor Cox or?
Councillor Ryan.
Sorry, Councillor Ryan. So, just to clarify, you're opposed to the motion to approve, or are you suggesting amendments to conditions?
I'm suggesting amendments.
Okay, so you're foreshadowing changes to conditions?
Yes.
Okay. I'm happy for you to talk to what those potential changes may be without actually moving it at this stage.
Okay. I'd like to move these amendments to the general conditions of approval to lessen the traffic impact on Wildwood Road, which is 4.8. Noting Main Road suggests it has not been approved by them, but was, in my understanding, by the then Shire of Busselton, and that it was not approved by Main Roads is not a valid argument to simply push both the exit and egress onto Wildwood Road. Separating these two entry and exit points is also a safety issue should a fire, which is a major concern to local residents, be forthcoming. It is my understanding that prior to handover circa 1999-2000 to Main Roads, a study by Mitchell McCotter was undertaken by the city, who had control of approvals, and it is considered that the approval was given to this land at the time. Main Roads do not object, it seems, to Caves Road access. Their words are not approved by them, but obviously there would be no records if it was handed over by us at the time. This amendment would also lessen likely tree removal on Wildwood Road. As per Mr. Zed's presentation, there is also safety issues currently existing on Wildwood Road, which the city acknowledges. Mr. Housel talked about traffic reduction at night time, but the mere fact that this development will have restrictions on food and beverage will surely encourage those staying to eat out at all times of day and night. In relation to 4.9, community objection, of which there were many, is concerned about the amenity of the view shed and the bulk of the development. Noting this is only a single story and the roofing design is aesthetic only, I would urge the panel members to agree to the change in 4.9. These amendments are for the good neighbourly relations from inception, and hopefully this developer will understand the passion these neighbours have for the area and would like to continue in perpetuity. Minor amendments at 7.1 is literally for the fact that there are management facilities on there and staffing facilities. And I would also like to request consideration of the egress from Wildwood Road be determined by the City of Busselton via a further condition to the satisfaction of adjoining landholders, which will lessen the impact on current landholders as raised here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. Councillor Cox, did you say you were opposed to the motion?
Yes, I am also
Okay.
opposed.
So before I ask you to talk to that, in accordance with standing orders, I'm going to support the motion to approve. I believe it's consistent with the planning framework. The City of Busselton has a local rural tourism strategy, which this is consistent with. The requirements of the viticulture and tourism zone have been addressed in the RDAP and reflect and are consistent with what's proposed. There's been a lot of discussion about visual impact, and the intent of that policy is not absolute. So, and unfortunately, it occurs regularly. The policy doesn't say that there cannot be any visual structures within the zone. I think it's about minimising impact, and I'm comfortable the proposed location addresses that. The objectives of the viticulture and tourism zone actually provide for tourism as proposed, and I think when the scheme was approved, there was a clear acknowledgement that this was something worth supporting. So for those reasons, I'm prepared to support the current motion. Councillor Cox, did you want to make a comment, given you said you were against the motion?
Yes, thank you. Whilst I do believe that this application is generally consistent with the planning framework, my main concern is with the access onto Wildwood Road. The TIS stated that the location on Wildwood Road only meets minimum road safety standards. The volume of traffic will be increased between 110 to 136 vehicle movements per day, and sightlines are not optimal in this location. Wildwood Road is one of the highest risk roads that we have in the City of Busselton. It's had maybe more than one amount of black spot funding on this road. It's had a very high proportion of off-road crashes, and as a result, audible edge lining has been installed along its entire length. It's an extremely probable road to drive on. I don't believe that Main Roads have given any compelling argument for why that road reserve cannot be used onto Caves Road. Therefore, I will particularly be supporting the amendment for 4.8 to further investigate the option of having the primary access onto Caves Road. That would be my preference. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cox, just to clarify, it would seem from your comments that you're opposed to the access, but you're not opposed to the recommendation to approve. Is that a fair interpretation?
Yes, that would be a fair interpretation. I'm not opposed to approving the application. However, I would like that condition 4.8 to the amended condition 4.8 to stand.
Okay. So Councillor Ryan has foreshadowed a change to that, which we'll deal with in a moment. I'll go to Ms. Baxter first, who indicated potential changes to conditions. And Councillor Ryan, I'll come back to you in a few moments.
Thank you, Presiding Member. Mine are really only typographical procedural. It's really just changing in condition 6, should refer to conditions 3 and 4. And condition 7 should refer to conditions 4 and 5. I'm content with all other conditions at this stage.
Can I get a seconder for that? Ms. Primji?
And I would like to propose the amended.
Yeah. Councillor Cox and Councillor Ryan, did you understand what Ms. Baxter is proposing? Yep. Okay. I'm going to put that, all those in favour? Unanimous, thank you. Ms Premji, you foreshadowed.
Foreshadowed condition number 4.8, as best as I can read over here. The details of the stormwater and the surface water drainage to be provided as per the Shire's engineering specifications to the satisfaction of the City of Busselton. That's
okay. Is there a seconder for that? Ms Baxter? Is anyone opposed to modification of that condition? If not, I'm going to put that, all those in favour? That's unanimous. Councillor Ryan, you did foreshadow a potential change to, well, introduction, I think, of a new condition or two new conditions.
Two new conditions and an amendment to 7.1, which reads with the addition of the words, the short stay accommodation components of the rural holiday resort, and then chalets and suites shall not be occupied. It's just for clarification of the differing buildings on the site.
Councillor Ryan, let's deal with those your changes individually. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Cox? No?
Yes, Councillor Cox said yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So did you want to talk to the reasons for that modification?
Well, I think I gave my reasons before, but I don't think it's acceptable for main roads to be pushing back on something which already exists.
Sorry, Councillor Ryan, we're only dealing with the change on 7.1.
Oh, okay, right, yeah, they're just procedural.
Yeah, for clarity. Okay. I'm going to put that motion. All those in favour? Sorry, 7.1?
Yeah, 7.1.
Yeah, yes. So that's unanimous. Councillor Ryan, those other potential changes?
You'd like me to speak to them?
Well, I'd like you to propose them, and I think perhaps let's do them individually.
Okay. I'd like to move 4.8, the amendment to the primary access being on Caves Road.
So that's a new 4.8?
Yes.
Yep. All right. Is there a seconder for that?
I'll second that. Councillor
Cox. Okay. Councillor Ryan, did you want to talk to that, please?
I just think a further clarification that I think main roads are pushing something onto us which can be conceived as cost shifting or whatever, but the access is there now. It's arguable that it isn't approved, it may not be approved by main roads, but it's arguable that it was approved by the then Shire of Busselton. Removing trees and putting the onus onto those people living on Wildwood Road, I think would only be fair to have half and half, and that there could potentially be less tree removal, which is a concern as well of people in that area. And we've already heard that it is a danger that the city won't pick up rubbish bins. So we are well aware that that road is a dangerous road, and I think that we should potentially be sharing the love. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. Councillor Cox, did you want to make comment on that motion?
No, I concur with Councillor Ryan's comments and stand by the comments I made earlier with regard to that issue.
Okay, thank you. Is anyone opposed to the motion? Ms Baxter?
I'm not going to support amended condition 4.8. I think it has been demonstrated by the proponents that the access can comply, and bearing in mind there will be additional engineering and working drawings needed to be undertaken to ensure the safety of that access point. I don't think you can make or persuade Main Roads necessarily even to accept this condition. So I'm not prepared to support the recommended or suggested condition 4.8.
Thank you. Ms Primji?
I'll second that. I concur with what Deputy Presiding Member has said, and also from the authority point of view, I do not believe in other sessions that I've said that we can impose such a condition on Main Roads. So I understand where Main Roads is coming from, but I also take comfort from what the Shire officers and their engineering officers have said, and also the applicant.
Thank you, Ms Primji. Councillor Cox, in the interests of equity, do you want to make, given you support the motion, did you want to make any additional comments?
The only comment I would make is just in response to the comment made from the previous member, is that whilst we don't really want to put the onus onto Main Roads, the condition is being put onto the city that we're required to then upgrade the road to accommodate the access onto this very dangerous very popular tourist road. And also that additional, there was just one more comment I wanted to make, that additional pressure on Wildwood Road where it meets Caves Road and that junction and trying to turn right. The additional traffic movements will be extremely problematic, and we may find at some point that Main Roads will have to upgrade that junction anyway as those traffic movements increase, because there will be accidents. I'm quite confident, just even with people driving along Wildwood Road and trying to turn right onto Main Roads after they egress from this property. So that would be my final comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. I won't be supporting the motion, and the reason for that is that I think from a legal perspective, it's difficult to impose a condition that can't be satisfied. Main Roads is in control of Caves Road, not the city, and has indicated they won't allow any further access, and it would be pointless to impose a condition that can't be implemented. So on that basis, I won't support the motion. Councillor Ryan, closing comments?
I'd just like to add to what Councillor Cox said in relation to the access onto Caves Road from Wildwood Road. You also have the Steiner School, which is an accident waiting to happen in close proximity to the actual development. But the other thing is, I'm not reading, I don't believe anywhere that Main Road said that they don't agree with the access coming off Caves Road. They've just said it's not approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. I'm going to put that motion to include a new condition 4.8 as has been circulated. All those in favour? Councillor Cox and Councillor Ryan. Those opposed? The motion is lost. Councillor Ryan, do you want to move a motion for that proposed new condition 4.9?
Yes, please. As written.
As written. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Cox? Councillor Ryan, did you want to talk to that?
Just quickly, I think this is all part of good neighbourly beginnings by the developer and the surrounding landholders. We've heard that the view shed is not optimal. To be adding landscaping in to reduce the viewscape, for want of a better word, I think is fraught with danger, especially in relation to the fire rating issue in that area. I think that the roof size is only aesthetical rather than it being practical. And as I said previously, I think it would be a good neighbourly condition to put on at the start. Thank you.
Councillor Ryan, just if a clarification in terms of what's proposed by the condition. So what do you see being achieved from the actual conditions specifically?
A reduction in roof height. It has no bearing on the actual buildings itself. It's not a double story. It's just the roof is a high roof for architectural reasons.
Okay, so when you say reducing the height, do you have a particular height in mind?
The main facilities building has got like a parapet section. If that can be either, the roof line can be either lowered so that it can encompass it or take it away.
Okay, so you're just talking about that architectural feature, not the actual roof height?
Yes.
Okay, that makes it clear. Thank you. I now understand what's proposed. Councillor Cox, did you want to make any comment?
I don't think I need to make too many comments. I concur with Councillor Ryan. I think just removing that slight architectural detail will just improve the visual amenity, bulk and scale of those buildings to surrounding properties, given that they are, particularly the main reception area will be located up on the ridge. And I was satisfied to an extent by what the officers said with regard to it perhaps being set a bit onto the ridge, but it will be quite visual, I think, the main building. So I think just removing those small details will assist in satisfying some of those submissions received and concerns received by neighbouring properties.
Right, thank you. Members opposed? Okay, Ms Baxter?
Yeah, I'm not going to support the inclusion of this draft for condition 4.9. We've already heard that the building complies with height. I guess it's a matter of beauties in the eye of the beholder. I actually thought the building was quite nice looking. In addition, these sorts of details will also be worked through in working drawings, and I believe are adequately covered in existing conditions 4.4 and 4.5. So I won't support the inclusion of that additional condition.
Thank you. Ms Premju?
I concur with the Deputy Presiding Member, and I believe that the applicant and the Shire officers have gone through this in detail, and they have made sure that it has, complied with the relevant documents.
Councillor Cox, did you want to talk in favour of the motion?
No, I just support the comments that I previously made. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I won't support it either for the basis comments made by Ms Baxter. I actually think those architectural features add value to the building and interest, and I don't see the purpose, given it complies, why we would remove that. I don't believe they create a significant visual impact. So with that, Councillor Ryan, do you want to make closing remarks?
No, I think I've said everything I have to say, but I guess from your comments, Chair, that the roof line could be made lower and still keep in those added architectural features, but obviously it's not going to be accepted. Thank you.
Okay, so we've got a motion to insert a new condition 4.9, and I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Councillor Cox and Councillor Ryan. Opposed? The motion's lost. Members, were there any other potential changes to conditions? If not, I'm going to revert back to to Ms. Baxter, who moved the original motion to approve. Ms. Baxter, do you want to make a closing comment?
Thank you. I don't really have anything further to add in relation to the merit of the application. I'm content with the few motions that have been accepted and prepared to support the application on that basis.
Okay, which I'm going to put the motion to approve subject to a few motions to modify conditions. All those in favour? Opposed? Councillor Ryan, opposed? Yep.
Yes.
Thank you. We'll just finish off that part of the agenda. Item 4, Form 2 applications, we have Neil. Item 5, Section 31, SAP reconsiderations, we have Neil. Representatives from the City of Busselton, as I indicated earlier, you're welcome to stay and listen on. Otherwise, you can leave and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you. Thank you. So we now move to part D of the agenda, which is Shire of Harvey. Item 1, declarations of due consideration. Like to see the Shire of Harvey.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. So, members, are you able to declare that you've duly considered all the information that's been provided in Part D and of the agenda and Part D additional information? If you're able to just raise your hand to declare. Duly declared, thank you. Item 2, disclosures of interest. We have no disclosures today. Any late disclosures? Councillors, you would have heard my comment about standing orders and items that have gone to council agendas. Has this item been on a council agenda?
No.
No, okay, so you don't need to make any other disclosures. Item 3 is Form 1 application, Lot 565 Paris Road, Australind, convenience store. We do have one presenter, Mr. Paul McQueen. Mr. McQueen, we have all received your submission and carefully read it. You have 3 minutes or thereabouts.
Thank you, Mr. Presiding Member, members of the panel. I'm comforted that you've read the written submission from Lavin dated the 15th of April, and I hope I will take, if not 2/3, slightly more of the 3 minutes allocated to me, in light of the fact that on instructions from Lavin on behalf of the proponents, I'm delighted to say that we support the recommendation, and I'm also pleased to inform you that there is no issue with the conditions. There was some challenging history associated with land use classification. However, you will observe in the letter from Lavin and also on page 8 of the Responsible Authority report that everyone that has expressed an opinion on this is of one mind, and that is that service station was the appropriate land use under the recently gazetted TPS2. So that's my first point. Land use has now been resolved, and the reason for the deferral we trust adequately assuaged. Second point is that with respect to the proposed variation between the 200-metre floor space contemplated in the scheme and the 286 square metre proposed use, the Shire officers agree with us that the exercise of discretion under the scheme, which is lawfully capable of being adopted, is appropriate in the circumstances consistent with those guidelines and parameters of the scheme. So given we've dealt with land use, and hopefully if the panel is satisfied that the exercise of discretion is appropriate, then I ask you respectfully to adopt the recommendation, grant approval on the proposed conditions. Hopefully that is under 3 minutes.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. McQueen. Members, questions? Ms. Baxter?
I do have one question. You indicated you're content with the conditions. Does that include the time frame that's outlined in condition 1?
I did check with my instructor, Ms. Mazzoli, and Mr. Caddy, the planning consultant, and I am told that yes, all of the conditions, including that, are acceptable. But if I may, just check, and Mr. Caddy is indicating that yes, we can meet that obligation.
Of the 2 years?
Yes, if you were, of course, prepared to move the motion to extend it, I wouldn't object to that.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
We might, Mr. McQueen, we might ask the city's officers about that, because 2 years isn't very long in order to get other approvals. So just bear in mind who, not sure who we've got from the city, from the Shire, but just take that question on notice.
If I could respond, if treating it as a question, I would be very gracious in accepting 3 or 4 years that I'm not instructed to press for.
Okay, all right. Any other questions to Mr. McQueen? No, Mr. McQueen, thank you. Members, before we actually move to the item, we have received legal advice, and I presume council officers, you've reviewed that legal advice?
You're council.
Oh, officers, sorry.
No, council.
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 Yes, yes, we have.
Okay. Is there any benefit in discussing that legal advice? And obviously, if we do that, we need to do it behind closed doors.
I don't think so.
No? Okay.
And I'm happy to move the motion.
Not just yet, Councillor Carboni. Not just yet.
It's been a long morning.
I know it has, and you've been very, very persistent. We appreciate that. I'm also conscious that we've had a number of addendums to the RAR. So, Elizabeth, so we've finished presentations. We go to the Shire's offices. Elizabeth, did you want to make any comment about the application?
Only just reiterating what we've put in the updated addendum, which reflects the gazettal of the new scheme. So we remain comfortable that it's a service station and can be approved.
Yeah, okay. And just to clarify, the addendum you refer to is the addendum dated the 9th of April.
It is, where is it?
Which is slightly different to the addendum that is part of the current RAR.
Yes, sorry, I was just checking that date. Yeah, so I did that just before gazettal. Yeah.
Okay, so there is, so from an officer perspective, you would be preferring that the addendum dated 9th of April be approved?
Yes.
Sorry, yeah, okay, thank you. Members, any questions of the Shire's officers? No? In which case, we move to the RAR recommendation, and I just remind councillors and members that we do have an addendum, but we've got an RAR recommendation. So is someone going to move the RAR recommendation?
Yeah, I'll move it then. Councillor Carboni.
Okay. I just clarified, Councillor Carboni, that that's, if you move that recommendation, you're entitled to, it's different to the addendum that was referred to by the officers.
Oh, right, yeah, I'd rather move the addendum then.
No. What you can do, withdraw your motion if you want to.
Yeah. I'll
Withdraw your
withdraw.
motion. So is anyone wishing to move the motion in the RAR? If not, it's lapsed. Does someone want to move an alternative recommendation?
Well,
Councillor Carboni?
I'll move the alternative motion that the addendum be accepted.
Just to clarify, the addendum dated the 9th of April.
Yeah.
Is there a seconder for the motion? Ms. Baxter? Is anyone, Councillor Carboni, did you want to talk to the motion?
No, I think with the gazettal of the town planning scheme #2, it's addressed the issues that were of concern at the last time we met over this issue. So the service station's an appropriate use within this zone. So I think it's, addressed the issues that we had at the last time we met.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Baxter?
Just a few words, and really I'm just reiterating what the council has just said. Yes, now that the land use classification has been sorted out via the gazettal of the new local planning scheme, the proposed development is approvable having regard to the strategic and statutory framework. The service station, including the convenience store component, are fit for purpose, and I'm comfortable with the small amount of discretion to be granted there. It is a standard design in accordance with the requirements of the fuel operator, so I'm prepared to support that and will vote accordingly. I do foreshadow amending condition 1 to allow a 4-year approval.
Okay, so if the mover and seconder are prepared to accept that, we can do that as part of the substantive motion.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it.
Yep. Okay, so the substantive motion is actually 4-year approval. Fine. Is anyone opposed to that motion? Anyone else wanting to speak to the motion? In which case, Councillor Carboni, closing comments?
No.
No? Okay.
All good.
So we've got a motion to approve the addendum dated 9th of April. The only change to that is a 4-year approval. So I'm going to put that. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Going through the balance of the agenda, item 4, Form 2 applications, nil. Item 5, Section 31, SAT reconsiderations, nil. Part E, other business, SAT applications and Supreme Court appeals, they're listed. Item 2, general business. Members, any general business? No? Nil? In which case, thank you everyone, particularly Shire of Harvey representatives and other members that have attended and tolerated a long meeting. Thank you for your contributions, and I declare the meeting closed at 11:38, and I hope you can enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Was that okay to stop?